Look at this, guys, look at this. New options for housing right here in Queenstown, Georgetown, Guyana.
Oh, this is my day. I'm ready to take it on, come what may.
Forshaw Street in Queenstown, Guyana. So guys, this is Forshaw Street at the intersection with Irving Street, and on the other side, St. Road. Today we're going to take a walk down Forshaw Street in Queenstown. Now Forshaw Street extends through Queenstown and Alberttown, so we're going to walk the length of it from Irving Street to Cumming Street. On the other side of St. Road, Forshaw Street becomes Epping Avenue in Belleair Park. And what's interesting is that this is no longer simply a residential neighborhood, right? So we always had residential homes in Forshaw Street. However, this is no longer just a residential neighborhood. Coming up here on the left hand side is Rusal, R-U-S-A-L. This is a Russian bauxite company. It's been recently in the news because of a strike that the company workers have imposed on the company. In other words, they've decided to strike from Rusal because of salary pay and working conditions. And the problem is the Russian company decided to fire all the striking workers. And so we have a crisis right now where the government is being asked to step in and reinstate those workers, or to remove Rusal, this Russian company, from operating in Guyana. This is Petereau Street at the intersection with Forshaw Street. Still continuing on Forshaw Street. So there are also a number of government buildings, government institutions here on Forshaw Street in Queenstown. And so mixed into this residential neighborhood is commercial and government property. So this one coming up on this tall building on the right hand side, this is the National Data Management Unit, and it's actually located across from residential property, so it's right smack dab in the middle of a residential neighborhood. So the National Data Management Unit is in fact the country's effort to implement e-government, that is to digitize all of the government ministries and all of the government data, and they've located it in this building right here in Queenstown. And Queenstown is one of these old neighborhoods in Georgetown where a lot of the property dates back to the middle of the last century. So the architecture reflects largely British colonial styles that were popular in the middle of the last century, 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, and so on. Here is a new residential property going up in Queenstown. So this is a building that is not quite complete, but it represents a new approach to residential or city living in Georgetown. Now this is New Garden Street, and it's located at the intersection with New Garden Street and Forshaw Street. This is a co-working space. This is a new co-working space in Georgetown. In fact, Guyana's only co-working space. Co-work Guyana, where you can go and rent an office space to do work if you were a startup company or if you were simply self-employed. And if you look back now at the new building going up on Forshaw Street, at the corner of Forshaw Street and New Garden Street, what you can see is this is a 4-story building. It has 3 levels above the ground level, and the top level is not quite complete, but you can see what it looks like is the multi-apartment complex, and it's right across the street from single-family homes. So it's interesting to see how this is changing and going to change residential property in the neighborhood. Now if you're looking for a place to rent long-term or short-term in Guyana, you have other options besides a single-family home. And across the street from it is this apparently hotel that has been going up for a long time, still not yet complete, but we'll see what becomes of that property when it's completed. And so this is what Queenstown is becoming, a residential and commercial property. This neighborhood, this is the Paradise Inn, which is also a new option for staying in Georgetown. Along with the hotels, the many hotels that are going up, you have these single-family homes or multi-family homes that have been converted into inns. So here's a business, a local business that serves as a dealer for a number of foreign companies. And this is located in Queenstown. So Queenstown is more than just a residential neighborhood. It's also a neighborhood for commerce and business. Interspersed among these beautiful residential homes are business places, offices, and buildings that some of them have been converted either to hotels or in this case an outlet for a number of foreign companies. As we come up to the intersection with Orinoco Street, you see some beautiful single-family homes in this large building that used to be a mining company's office of a mining company. Now I think they're using it for residences. And at the corner here, there is a hotel, I believe a Brazilian hotel, the Rio Inn, at the corner of Forshaw Street and Orinoco Street. And it's a prime location now among these residential homes for persons visiting Georgetown, typically Brazilians visiting Georgetown to stay at the Rio Inn in Queenstown. Now Queenstown ends at the next intersection, which is Albert Street. Albert Street is the beginning of Alberttown. So the houses are becoming more and more residential as you move from Queenstown into Alberttown. So these are new houses that are going up, still in the Queenstown area on Forshaw Street. As you can see, the buildings are becoming taller. So what used to be wooden 2-story buildings, initially buildings that were on stilts, are now becoming 3-story and 4-story concrete structures. And that points to the density of the city, the population density of Georgetown increasing, because as more and more people move in to Georgetown from rural Guyana there is a demand for housing, and that drives up not only the price of real estate, but the height of buildings. The new buildings usually are being built to accommodate more and more residents, but still reserving usually the lower flat, the ground floor is still being reserved for commercial activity. And this brings us to the end of Queenstown. So Queenstown, once a completely residential area, is now both residential and commercial. This is a new Chinese restaurant on Albert Street in Alberttown. This restaurant started operating about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and it's quite popular, the Campbell Inn. And so looking back, and that's looking north on Albert Street towards the police station, we're now in Alberttown. We've crossed over Albert Street into Alberttown. Now Alberttown is adjacent to Queenstown, but it's closer to the city center, and it's even older than Queenstown. Alberttown is the home of much older homes, although there has been renewal. Some of the residents have been turning some of these structures into newer concrete structures, but this is an example of an old building, an old wooden structure that was typically what you found throughout Alberttown. And a lot of these wooden buildings are now being replaced by concrete buildings such as this, and some of them are now becoming hotels. This is another hotel, another inn. And so what used to be a residential community is now commercial as well as residential, with a lot of new construction turning these old wooden buildings, wooden colonial structures, into taller concrete buildings being used for commercial activity like businesses on the ground floor and hotels and inns on the upper floor, responding for the demand for housing and for places to stay for people visiting from abroad. This is Alberttown. We're approaching the intersection with Light Street. So Light Street in Alberttown. By the way, Forshaw Street turns into 5th Street. So once you cross over Albert Street, Forshaw Street becomes 5th Street in Alberttown. There's 6 streets. This is the 5th Street from Lamaha Street. And that's looking towards Lamaha Street on Light Street. Again, looking on Light Street towards Church Street, which is about 2 blocks away. This is another sports bar on 5th Street in Alberttown. And now the houses, mostly residential houses, have remained in the format that they were built way back in the middle of the last century. And this is typically what homes in the 1970s and 1980s Guyana were built to look like. The taller structures, of course, are more recent, probably built in the last 5 years, and they're replacing these older wooden buildings with more durable and weather resistant and termite resistant buildings, because one of the problems of living in the tropics is you have to deal with termites, usually wood ants and termites that eat wood. And so the concrete structures are usually built to replace the wooden structures because they last longer and they're resistant to termite damage, although they might be hotter and basically cost more to cool. But the durability is a factor that drives moving to concrete buildings. And this residential neighborhood remains a mixed use neighborhood. So the zoning that once made this neighborhood, Alberttown, a purely residential neighborhood, is being relaxed to include more and more businesses. So homes are being used to operate businesses. Businesses are operating out of homes. This is the DHL building, so this is where parcels arrive when they're shipped by DHL. And this is Copycat, a large private copy business operating out of a home. And this brings us to the end of 5th Street in Alberttown. This is Cumming Street, looking towards Church Street. And here's looking back up at 5th Street and Forshaw Street on Albert Street. So Cumming Street is the western end of Forshaw and 5th Street, and with a slight dogleg to the right, the streets continue as Promenade Street. So that's Forshaw Street and 5th Street, Queenstown and Alberttown. If you want to see more content like this, click like and subscribe, and let me know what you think of this neighborhood. Later!